Sure, I'm Daniel Miller. I started Mute Records and I still work here. It was a very special thing for me personally because we had so many of our artists there, from almost the very beginning right through to our brand new artists, and just the atmosphere, all the artists together and all the people who came, just seemed to be just a really great atmosphere. And everybody, you know, we had a very broad range of music within the label, and it seemed like all the people there were very open to embracing all of it. And some of the reactions I've seen online after the festival, people said, "Oh, I loved Erasure, I loved The Residents," the same. So a very broad sort of spectrum like that. And people were just really nice. I talked to a lot of people who came to the concert, and there were people there from all over the world, and they're just really nice, just a good vibe. And it was emotional for me, I guess it was emotional seeing some of those things. Some of them were, like Fogel Sharkey singing with Vince for the Assembly single was, he hasn't sung in 20 years, he says, he claims. I have no reason to disbelieve him. And that was just magical, because first of all, they've never done that live before. That was a really special moment, one of the many really special moments. But no surprise, I suppose, I wasn't surprised by anything. I was just really pleased that people enjoyed it so much. The impetus was really mutual between EMI and Mute and me, because what happened was, when I first originally sold the company to EMI, it was a very different kind of company, and I knew a lot of the people who were working there and who were sort of running it really, and they knew me very well. It seemed like a really good match. They were very keen for Mute to stay very separate and continue the way we'd worked. But as time went on, some of those people left, the company got sold, the industry changed, there was issues with all big record companies, And while I maintained a very good relationship with people there, the structure of the company meant that we were kind of being more absorbed into the company and more just like another EMI label. There's nothing wrong with that in itself, but it didn't really suit me personally because, I was losing what I felt was kind of, kind of an independence of thought, that not that they were, I was able to, I could have signed pretty much whatever I wanted. It wasn't that so much, it was just the day-to-day working didn't suit me very much. And they recognised that, and we both recognised it. We talked for 2 years about how we could make it work, because they were, I couldn't just leave and everybody would come with me because people were under contract to EMI, etc. So it was important that we maintain a good relationship, because I was still working with them on some of the artists who are still at EMI. A lot of the artists had come over to Mute, to the new independent version. But I maintain a good relationship with people at EMI. I just felt that it was the right thing to do, and I feel good for it. I'm not very good at, I'm not a very good person at working the system. I'd like to have my own system and just let it. Working other people's systems is just not my thing. I'm not very good at it. I think I didn't sign any artists for about 2 years, the last 2 years, because I didn't know what the future of the company was going to be. I didn't want to sign an artist who would then maybe be with EMI and then us leave, and they wouldn't necessarily want to be in that situation. So we didn't really sign anybody for 2 years. So there were a lot of people we spoke to about signing, and now a lot of those deals have come together in the last few months. So from a public point of view, what you'll see is a lot of new artists, well, a few new artists on Mute in the next year, 12 months, which is very exciting. In the early days, we were very focused on electronic music. That was very important. We're still very focused on electronic music, but we've broadened our focus, for many years outside of electronic music. But I still feel that all the music we're working with is very special, very original, and that's what's really important to me. I like people who want to push forward and really explore areas and take risks musically. And so, all those things are kind of common. Although I've never, it's not something that I think about. I don't have a list of boxes that I tick every time I meet an artist. It's kind of instinctive. You kind of know. First of all, you have to like the music. If you don't like the music, all the other, you can tick as many boxes as you like, but it's not going to work. So obviously you've got to like the music first, or have some feeling about the potential of the music, even if, you're presented with is not the finished article, but you still have to have a feeling that there's something there. And then we take it from there. It's nice when an artist, not necessary, but it's nice when an artist has quite a broad set of sort of sensibilities that can go beyond just the musical. So but it doesn't have to be like that. But when that happens, that's a nice thing. If they're interested in film, or if they're interested in photography or art or whatever, all that stuff informs what they do, and then all of a sudden that chimes with somebody who's making a film, and then they get asked to make. That's how it happens. I think always the first impression is about the heart, really, and if you're a music fan, that's just where it can stay. But if you then want to, get involved in the process of making the records, you have to start using your ears as well, but it's always the difficult thing is to make sure you never lose the connection between the ear and the heart. Because if it's just about how it sounds, it's not going to be a very good record, And so you have to connect the ear and the heart. To keep that connection, I'd say. I haven't really done any production since the mid-80s, partly because I don't particularly enjoy it. Actually, it's a long, partly because I did a lot of collaboration with Depeche Mode and quite a few of the other new artists. I mean, it wasn't really production, it was more like collaboration, and I enjoyed that a lot, but it was very time consuming, and it was time for them to find other people to work with. It was time for me to get on with running the label, really. So we stopped, and I did a couple of things in between after that, but it's not really my thing, record production. I mean, so what I really enjoy doing is the kind of creative A&R process rather than production. So that means, listening to the songs before the records, before the sort of going into the studio, having a thing, it's a completely different process with every artist, so there's no one way of doing it, but being part of that process, if there's discussion to be had about the direction of the record, if there's a producer involved, finding the right producer, being sort of fresh ears that can go down to the studio when, whatever, as I said, even with some artists I still do a few synth overdubs from time to time if I'm asked, which I enjoy. All that, the mixing process I enjoy probably the most about the studio, and by the time an artist gets to the mixing process, and even the producer gets to the mixing process, they're pretty shot. Do you know what I mean? And it's quite good to have a fresh pair of ears that they ask me down to have a listen, and I get as involved or not as necessary. So yeah, I mean, I keep my hand into the creative process where I can. I've got a little studio at home with some old synths. I just muck about. It's almost like a hobby for me now, which makes it much more enjoyable. Your kind of relationship with music changes completely once you start being a record company. Not necessarily in a bad way. It just changes, and you can't. I've never been a record collector. I don't have a huge record collection. I've always only liked very few things an awful lot, and hated pretty much everything else. So I've never, I'm not interested in collecting records really. I'm just interested in good records.